Hey guys, tonight we slip into linen tunics, tiptoe past sun-baked, mud-brick homes, and start our day the way any self-respecting ancient Egyptian might, with a mouthful of dust and breath that could scare off a hippo. You're waking up somewhere along the fertile banks of the Nile, thousands of years before floss was even a twinkle in a dentist's eye. Your tongue feels like it's been wrapped in papyrus overnight. Your gums throb slightly in your breath. Let's just say if the gods can smell it, they're probably plotting a plague in retaliation. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. Always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch and yawn inside your tiny, one-room mud brick home, the sun already stabbing golden spears through the doorway. Your teeth ache faintly, not from cavities necessarily, but from centuries of abrasive, makeshift dental care methods that your ancestors will refine only slightly over time. You roll off your sleeping mat made of woven reeds and stumble out into the bright light of 1500 BCE. There's no mini squeeze tube waiting for you on a bathroom counter. In fact, there's no bathroom. There's a clay jar near your doorway with a mixture you prepared yesterday. Crushed limestone, a few grains of salt, and maybe some burnt bread scraps someone said would whiten the enamel, though no one's entirely sure what enamel even is. Still, you trust the community recipe. Everyone's doing it, and old Menka next door swears by it, even though his teeth look like desert ruins. You take a pinch of this dusty concoction, press it to your gums with a wetted fingertip, and start rubbing in small, circular motions. Instantly, you regret it. The grit scratches like sandpaper. It's like licking the inside of a pyramid. Your gums start to throb a little, but you press on because, hey, you're an ancient Egyptian. You've survived famine, flood, and sandals made of palm fiber. A bit of tooth erosion is nothing. As the taste hits your tongue, a sour, chalky blend of rock and char, you can't help but wonder, who thought this was the way to start a day? Historians still argue whether these early pastes were used mainly for cleaning or if they were part of ritual purification. Either way, one thing's certain, it's doing something. Whether that something is helpful or horrifying, we'll get to later. The Nile glistens in the distance, and the chatter of early morning life grows louder. Fishermen are already out checking woven reed traps. Children chase stray goats around mud brick corners. You, meanwhile, are spitting a grayish sludge into the sand and trying not to gag. A neighbor strolls past, flashes you a mostly toothless grin, and lifts a pot of similar powder in greeting. You nod back. Solidarity. What most people don't know is that the ancient Egyptian obsession with cleanliness extended everywhere. They were pioneers of personal hygiene, bathing frequently, shaving body hair, and even using deodorant pastes made from crushed carob and citrus oils. But their dental care, that one remained a little more experimental. You make your way toward the village center. A small crowd is gathered around a stone bench, where someone's setting out new dental supplies for trade, crushed pumice stones, powdered ox hooves, and a weirdly popular item, pulverized seashells. It's like a medieval Whole Foods dental aisle, minus the gluten-free labels. You overhear two farmers chatting about the new recipe that includes iris petals, said to cure bad breath and attract Ra's favor. They could just be making that up, honestly. Half the dental advice around here feels like divine improv. And that's the thing. There's no dentist degree, no school, no toothbrush patent pending. But there is an unspoken rule. If you don't scrub your mouth out with rocks today, you might not make it to see the next scare beetle infestation. You laugh a little at the thought until a fragment of limestone wedges between your back molars. Great! Now you get to spend the next hour trying to fish it out with your fingernail, which, let's be real, hasn't been washed in days. As the sun rises higher, you fall into rhythm with the morning routines. Sweep the front of your home with a palm frond broom. Drink a sip of sour beer left over from last night. And try not to think about the fact that your teeth might be whiter, but are definitely bleeding a little. Interestingly, archaeologists have found skulls from this era with teeth worn nearly flat, not from sugar or decay, but from years of abrasive grit embedded in bread and dental powders. Every bite you take has a side of microscopic sand, whether you like it or not. Even pharaohs weren't exempt. Their tombs often contain jars of dental powder, preserved alongside amulets and alabaster statues, as if to say, take care of your teeth in the afterlife, too. And here's the kicker. Dental hygiene wasn't always about health. It was also a kind of status symbol. Clean teeth meant discipline, purity, and divine favor. So even if you were gumming away at your last molar, you still wanted them to look good. And if you bled, that just meant it was working, right? You lean against the outer wall of a neighbor's house, dusted in ochre paint and handprints from some long-forgotten festival. A child darts past, laughing, mouth smeared with date paste. Probably hasn't brushed in days. You envy their ignorance. The temple bells sound in the distance, summoning farmers, scribes, and sleepy you to another day under the hot, yellow IFRA. As you shoulder your flax sack and shuffle off toward the fields, the grit still clings to your tongue. It's going to be a long day, and you'll be repeating this whole ordeal again tomorrow. Every single morning. You've barely made it past your first meal. If you can call a crusty hunk of barley bread and a sip of lukewarm beer a meal, when someone presses a small clay bowl into your hands. Inside, a chalk-colored dust, peppered with darker flecks and the unmistakable scent of something burned. This, they tell you, is the good stuff. Premium-grade dental paste. The ash came from yesterday's fire, the ground stone from the riverbank's softer limestone, and the added texture? Probably burnt breadcrumbs. Because nothing says oral hygiene like leftovers scorched beyond recognition. Your host, an elderly woman with 3 visible teeth and the confidence of someone who's seen empires rise and fall, nods for you to give it a try. You wet a finger again and dip it into the powder, this time slightly more cautious after this morning's exfoliation by gravel experience. The moment it touches your gums, there's a brief sting, followed by a strange sense of freshness, maybe? Or maybe it's just the feeling of your enamel waving a tiny white flag. Burnt bread and powdered rock might sound like punishment, but in this world, it's science, or at least ritual science. Historians still argue whether the ingredients were selected for actual cleaning properties or spiritual symbolism. After all, Egyptians were masters of blending medicine with mysticism. Crushed pumice for abrasion, myrrh for scent, and ash, well, maybe ash is just the ancient version of activated charcoal. Sort of. You look around and notice a few others doing the same routine, each with their own personal variation. One man adds a pinch of natron, a salty compound harvested from the desert, that he insists draws out tooth demons. A child giggles while pretending to brush with a twig dipped in honeyed sand. It's both adorable and horrifying. But here's where it gets weirder. One recipe you hear about uses donkey hooves, ground to dust, and mixed with vinegar. Apparently, it helps brighten the soul through the teeth. You pretend to nod thoughtfully, but the mental image lingers a bit too long. And don't even ask about the goose fat version used for lubricating the molars. That one makes your stomach turn a little. Still, there's an oddly communal vibe to it all. You squat near the fire with others, comparing powders, trading tips, and trying to decide whether a smear of fig sap helps or hurts. A young woman points out her aunt's trick, mixing a crushed lotus petal into the blend for a floral aftertaste. You can't taste anything except soot and despair, but you appreciate the effort. The sun climbs higher. You wipe the dusty paste from your teeth with a scrap of woven linen and wonder just how much damage you're doing with all this. But then someone nearby, an apprentice scribe, starts talking about what he saw at the temple. They've got jars, he says. Special jars. Jars labeled with symbols that imply divine approval. Ones used by priests, royalty, maybe even Pharaoh himself. The contents? Apparently a more refined blend, made with imported minerals, possibly even traces of, get this, crushed emerald. Of course, nobody's actually seen these elite pastes up close, but rumors have a way of turning into gospel when you're several millennia away from Colgate. In fact, one fringe theory, you overhear a slightly drunk baker mutter it, claims these pastes weren't meant to be swallowed or even rinsed. They were meant to be spat in sacred places, like tooth prayers or mini offerings. That's probably not true, but you kind of like the idea of someone in the afterlife reading your dental devotion like a divine Yelp review. The weirdest part? It works sort of. You catch your reflection in a polished copper mirror, grainy, wobbly, but enough to spot the dull shine of your molars. They're not sparkling, but they're also not green, which in this era counts as a win. You flash a test grin. Slightly bleeding gums? Yes. Crust-free enamel? Also yes. Still, the process makes you wonder. Were these crushed rock cocktails genuinely helpful? Or did they just scrape off the surface grime while quietly eroding your entire smile? Archaeologists have found Egyptian skulls with teeth ground flat, the result of years of brushing with powdered stone and eating sand-ridden bread. But here's the thing, very little decay. Seriously, despite the bleeding and enamel loss, cavities were surprisingly rare, thanks to their low-sugar diet and naturally gritty oral care. Of course, some historians caution that this is more correlation than causation. Was it the crushed rocks? The fiber-rich bread? The semi-constant fasting? No one agrees. And no one agrees whether those tooth powders were genuinely medicinal or just cleverly disguised folklore. You think about that as you spit again into the dirt, the taste still lingering somewhere between scorched barley and brick. And yet, even with all this abrasion, there's a beauty to the ritual. The preparation, the intention. You're not just scrubbing your teeth. You're aligning yourself with centuries of tradition. It's both deeply personal and oddly performative, a mini theater of health that everyone participates in because, well, everyone else is. You head toward the grain storage, past several palm trees, and a curious goat that tries to lick your linen sleeve. It's going to be a long afternoon of grinding barley, dodging sandflies, and pretending your gums don't hurt. Still, you're feeling cleaner than before, and in a land where dust rules and the sun never quits, that counts for something. Just as you're about to start scooping grain, a temple boy passes by and murmurs something about a new type of paste being used by the elite scribes. Something involving crushed pearl, supposedly imported from far-off shores. You roll your eyes. If you ever see a pearl in your toothpaste, you'll assume you've died and gone to dental heaven. But until then, it's burnt bread and limestone. Good morning, ancient Egypt. The afternoon sun blisters your shoulders as you retreat from the fields, palms stinging and molars still tingling from this morning's gravel-flavored cleaning session. You duck under the narrow archway of a shaded courtyard, where a few villagers are gathered beneath a fig tree. One of them, an older priest with a kind of slow-moving serenity that only comes from deep faith or decades of back pain, motions you over. In his hand, a stick, not just any stick. This one is frayed at one end, like a tiny, exploded broom. He holds it out to you, nodding sagely as if passing down some sacred artifact. You take it gingerly. It's soft at the tip, sort of, kind of. Okay, maybe not that soft. Still, he gestures again, mimicking a brushing motion across his yellowed teeth. Right? So you're brushing now, with a twig. This, you're told, is a chewing stick. Historians believe the Egyptians used twigs from aromatic trees like the Salvadora persica or toothbrush tree, though whether you've got one of those or just a random fig branch is up for debate. Either way, you tentatively begin to gnaw the end. After a few minutes, it splits into fibers, creating something that vaguely resembles a toothbrush. If a toothbrush were made by someone who had only heard about toothbrushes in a dream, you press it to your teeth and start a scrub. It's not the worst thing you've ever done. The fibers don't slice your gums as aggressively as the crushed rock did, and there's even a hint of something slightly minty, though that might be psychological. A few others around you are doing the same, and one woman swears that frayed papyrus stalks clean better than river pebbles. Another mutters that willow branches reduce tooth pain, which actually lines up with what modern scientists found. Willow bark contains salicin, a natural precursor to aspirin. Of course, whether your twig was harvested from a willow or the nearest half-dead shrub is anyone's guess. But you keep brushing anyway. Now here's the thing. They didn't always brush just for health. In ancient Egypt, appearance mattered deeply. Cosmetics, wigs, scented oils, they weren't just fashion. They were expressions of order over chaos, of Ma'at over Isfit. Clean teeth, like clean linens and smooth-shaven heads, were signs of balance. So brushing with a twig wasn't just hygiene, it was ritual. A declaration that even if your diet consisted of coarse beer and bread, your mouth was civilized. You sit beside a basin of cooling water as a young boy tries to mimic your brushing style. He jabs the twig directly into his mouth like a tiny spear and immediately spits it out. You chuckle. It's a technique, not a weapon. You swish a bit of water, spit it out discreetly behind a rock, and then realize your teeth feel polished. Not fresh exactly, but less gross. And your gums, while not bleeding for once, still ache slightly, like they're bracing for the next wave of dental experimentation. But this was standard. Chewing sticks weren't used just after meals. They were chewed throughout the day, worked like toothpicks, breath fresheners, even stress relievers. Kind of like the ancient world's version of a fidget spinner, but for your molars. Still, the line between help and harm was thin. Scholars still argue whether constant use of these twigs, especially from abrasive woods, contributed to long-term gum recession. There are accounts of priests developing severe oral abscesses despite meticulous brushing. Could it be that their holy twigs were actually sandpapering their mouths into oblivion? But let's not dwell. Not when the old priest is reaching for something even more interesting, a copper dental probe. No, don't run. He's not about to perform surgery. Not exactly. He crouches beside you, lifts your lip with all the delicacy of someone handling a clay pot, and taps at your back teeth with the thin end of the tool. It's cool against your enamel, a momentary relief in the heat. Then he nods and steps back, clearly satisfied. This is part of the priestly dental checkup, a ritualized act that toes the line between medicine and magic. The copper pick is more symbolic than surgical, but there's evidence that these kinds of tools were used for basic extractions or cleaning. It's not uncommon for scribes to record cases where a bad tooth was removed using copper tongs and a swift chant to the gods of the mouth. One fringe tidbit claims that some priests would whisper spells while cleaning teeth, believing that decay was caused by evil spirits nesting in the gums. You haven't heard any chanting yet, but you wouldn't be surprised. You thank him quietly and resume working your chewing stick, careful now to target just the front teeth. You're starting to get the hang of it, even developing a rhythm: scrape, twist, chew, spit, all while the copper mirror nearby reflects your slightly less horrific grin. The afternoon melts into early evening. You sip date, wine as the sky turned to molten orange. Around you, the sounds of domestic life blend with the occasional squeal of a goat or crack of a fire. And over it all, the steady shuff-shuff of people brushing with twigs, each in their own meditative little bubble. It's strangely soothing. You start to feel like part of a long, frayed-fibered legacy. No floss, no fluoride, but a shared understanding that a clean mouth means a cleaner soul, or at least fewer odd looks at the market. And even though your gums are a battlefield, you take pride in the fact that you're doing something about it, even if that something looks like gnawing a tree branch while squatting in the dirt. As the stars begin to blink awake in the sky, someone passes around a fresh batch of chewing sticks, neatly carved and still smelling of sap. You take one, tuck it behind your ear for morning, and smile. Still hurts, though. The moon hangs low as you shuffle through the temple's outer courtyard, the stone cool beneath your feet, the air finally merciful. You've been summoned, not for punishment, not for praise, but for something far stranger, a visit to the Per'Ankh, the house of life. Temple scribes come here to record medical knowledge, treat illnesses, and yes, poke at your mouth with things that should never be poked. You're not sick exactly, just sore. Your gums throb when you chew, and the last chewing stick you tried splintered and jabbed your palate like a vengeful scorpion. The priest doctor who greeted you earlier is back now, flanked by two acolytes carrying ceramic jars and a small brazier of burning incense. You sit on a cushion stuffed with straw that feels approximately as supportive as a stack of rocks. A chant begins, low, melodic, almost hypnotic. The ritual has started. This isn't just a checkup, it's a ceremony. You try to relax, mouth slightly open, as the priest raises his hands and begins to invoke Circuit, goddess of healing and venom, and, more importantly, Petby, a less famous but still tooth-related deity known as a god of revenge. You're hoping he means revenge on your toothache, not revenge through it. The acolytes set out jars, one filled with honey, another with ground charcoal, and a third holding something that smells like fermented onions dipped in camel hair. The priest dips a copper instrument into a paste made from myrrh and natron and carefully taps along your gum line, humming a phrase that could mean cleanse the body or open wide or RA help you. Historians still argue whether these rituals had medical merit or were purely symbolic. Some say the chants were believed to drive out spirits of decay. Others think they simply calmed the patient long enough for the scraping to commence. You, in this moment, are less concerned with scholarly debate and more with the fact that the priest just prodded a nerve with the cold end of his probe. Your entire left cheek twitches involuntarily. He nods solemnly. Ah, he says the spirit resists. You want to clarify that it's not a spirit, it's inflammation. But instead, You stay still while he reaches for a pinch of crushed sycamore bark, a mild antiseptic in their pharmacopoeia, and smears it over the sore spot. It stings. It also smells oddly pleasant, earthy and spicy, like your grandmother's kitchen. The brazier beside you flares as a stick of frankincense is tossed in. Smoke swirls. The priest circles you once, then places a hand gently on your forehead. You're not sure if you've just been spiritually anointed or accidentally recruited into the afterlife's dental corps. In ancient Egypt, priests were often the primary healers. Dentistry, such as it was, fell under their domain. They performed tooth extractions, lanced abscesses, and prepared herbal poultices with surprising precision. Sometimes. Other times, they just hoped the chanting would do the heavy lifting. There's even one particularly cursed-sounding remedy found in the Eber's papyrus involving lizard blood, crushed beetles, and, of all things, donkey fat applied to the gums at sunset. You're almost grateful this temple seems to prefer honey and myrrh. Almost. The priest gestures for you to rinse your mouth with warm water steeped in mint and sage. It tastes better than the last 5 things you've put in your mouth today, which isn't saying much. You swish, you spit. The priest nods again. Then, solemnly, he reaches into a pouch and removes a tooth amulet. It's shaped like a molar, carved from faience and strung on a strip of leather. He presses it into your palm and tells you to wear it on the left wrist until your pain subsides. You suppress the urge to ask if they come in a whitening version. There's real logic here, though. The Egyptians saw disease and healing as matters of both the body and spirit. If your teeth hurt, it might be decay, or it might be a moral imbalance, or a cursed mummy, or the misalignment of your ka. The point is, they covered all their bases. You stumble out of the temple with a mouth coated in herbs and a faint ringing in your ears from all the chanting. The stars are brighter now, and somewhere nearby, a crocodile growls from the Nile's edge. It's a timely reminder that one of the gods associated with dentistry, Sobuk, the crocodile-headed deity, was both feared and revered. His bite, they believed, could destroy or heal, depending on whether he liked you. You hope he likes you. You take a slow walk through the village, past doorways lit by oil lamps, past children brushing their teeth with sticks and laughing with mouths full of bark. You feel different. Not better, exactly, but like you've been through something. A rite of passage. A dentist exorcism, basically. You clutch your tooth amulet. The pain's not gone, but it's quieter now, lulled by ritual and mint, and maybe just the power of belief. As you reach your sleeping mat and lie down, you wonder, did any of this really help? Did it matter if the tools were crude, the chants mumbled, the powders more likely to polish granite than heal a cavity? Maybe not, but it made you feel like you were part of something bigger. A culture that didn't just endure pain. It gave it meaning, wrapped it in incense, tied it to gods, and handed you a twig. And maybe that's all you need sometimes. The next morning greets you not with the shriek of roosters, but with a sharp, sour stench wafting from your own mouth. It's impressive, really. You've been through twig brushing, rock scrubbing, temple poking, and still, you could knock out a priest with one exhale. You sit up, rub the sleep from your eyes, and decide. Today, we tackle the breath problem. You're not alone in this struggle. Ancient Egyptians were highly aware of mouth odor. Maybe not in the minty fresh way modern ads suggest, but certainly enough to throw a few spells and spices at it. Bad breath, or fetid exhalation as it was sometimes poetically described, wasn't just unpleasant. It was seen as an imbalance. Something unholy, possibly demonic, at the very least, socially inconvenient. Your neighbor, A flax worker with the unfortunate nickname Stinky Beck once tried to court a temple girl. She ran away mid-sentence. He's now known more for his breath than his weaving. Not wanting to share that fate, you make your way to the apothecary's stall, a little sun-baked nook off the market square filled with powders, pastes, and dried herbs hanging from the ceiling like crunchy garlands. The apothecary, a sharp-eyed woman with missing eyebrows and suspiciously clean teeth, smiles as you approach. She already knows why you're here. She always knows. Without a word, she hands you a small cloth pouch. Inside, a blend of crushed myrrh, dried mint leaves, cinnamon bark, and powdered iris root. You raise an eyebrow. She nods. Chew it slowly, she says, and keep your mouth shut while it works. No talking to ward off demons. Right? Of course. You take a pinch and place it under your tongue. Immediately, there's a blast of flavor. Earthy, sharp, slightly sweet, and a bit like licking the inside of a spice jar that's been forgotten since the reign of Hatshepsut. Your eyes water, but you persist. The mint numbs your gums. The cinnamon burns a little, but you're oddly comforted by the taste. It feels ancient, intentional. The use of aromatic compounds to freshen the breath wasn't uncommon. Myrrh was especially popular, not just for scent, but for its antiseptic properties. In fact, small myrrh pellets were sometimes chewed throughout the day, both as breath fresheners and as oral painkillers. Historians still argue whether these pellets were medicated or symbolic. Were they spiritual protection or ancient gum? Maybe both. You lean against a stone wall and continue chewing. The apothecary tosses a handful of dried fennel seeds into your pouch and tells you to add those next time. Helps with wind, she says. You're not sure if she means breath or digestion, but honestly, both are welcome. As the flavor fades, something odd happens. Your mouth feels cleaner. Not sparkling, but less haunted. You spit discreetly into a corner because you're not a monster, and success. The breath monster has retreated. For now, you rejoin the crowd milling around the market square. A scribe nearby is selling protective amulets shaped like tongues, supposedly to preserve verbal purity. You're pretty sure they just ran out of tooth-shaped ones. Someone hands you a strip of dried date coated in powdered mint. A snack? A breath mint? Who knows? It's both, probably. The line between food and hygiene is blurry at best. One common method of freshening breath included chewing on dried lotus petals. Another involved tiny pouches of crushed cloves hung around the neck, or even tucked inside head coverings to infuse the voice with perfume. Of course, not everyone had access to such luxuries. Most people did what they could with what they had, chewing herbs from their gardens, rinsing with warm beer, or just breathing in the other direction. You pause near a group of temple initiates rehearsing chants. One boy hiccups mid-hymn and immediately begins gnawing on a licorice root. Another offers you a piece. It tastes like sweetened anise and mud, but hey, it's polite to accept. And to be fair, it does help mask whatever horrors still cling to your molars. It's clear that the mouth wasn't just a place for food, it was sacred real estate. You spoke prayers with it, made oaths, praise gods. A clean mouth wasn't just for comfort, it was for purity. To be ritually clean meant clean in thought, body, and breath. You're chewing more slowly now, relaxing into the rhythm of it. Chew, breathe, chew. People pass by, nodding, greeting, and, miracle of miracles, no one recoils. A woman selling onions even smiles at you. That's how you know you're improving. Still, you can't help but wonder how sustainable this is. Can chewing spicy plants and rinsing with herbal teas really fix what a steady diet of coarse bread and sand-infused stew causes? Some scholars say no. Others suggest that constant chewing on roots, herbs, twigs helps stimulate saliva, which naturally fights bacteria. Then again, they didn't know about plaque or bacteria. They thought bad breath came from spiritual imbalance or internal rotting winds. So maybe we're all just guessing across the centuries. As you wander through the village, you pass a mummy being ceremonially transported to its final resting place. The linen wrappings are pristine, the cart ornate, the air thick with incense. You notice something odd? Among the possessions being buried with the body is a small jar of what you swear smells like mint. Even in death, it seems bad breath is not allowed. You smirk, feeling oddly vindicated in your quest. You're doing your part. You're chewing your spices. You're rinsing. You're avoiding onions, mostly. You may not live long enough to understand enamel erosion, but you'll go down with a decent-smelling exhale. Back at your sleeping mat, you open your pouch of herbs, breathe in the sharp, spicy aroma, and sigh. Your mouth still hurts, your gums are still inflamed, and you'll probably wake up tomorrow with another film of mouth fuzz. But you're learning, adapting. Ancient Egyptians didn't just suffer, they managed. And tomorrow, you might even try that frankincense sesame blend someone whispered about near the barley bins. Just maybe not the donkey fat one. Ever. The village is asleep now. Mostly. A few dogs bark in the distance, and the occasional clink of pottery echoes off stone walls. But your restless curiosity won't let you drift off just yet. Tonight, you're not staying in your own cot. Tonight, you're sneaking off toward the tombs. Not for mischief. Well, not entirely. Word around the granary is that one of the burial attendants recently opened a newly discovered chamber. A minor noble from centuries ago. Untouched, teeth still intact. You're not exactly sure how the teeth came up in casual conversation, but once they did, your mind locked in like a crocodile on a duckling. You need to see them. The path to the necropolis is silent and moonlit, the sand cool beneath your sandals. You move quietly, heart pounding with each footstep, and finally arrive at a half-excavated chamber dug into the limestone cliff. A guard naps in the corner, leaning against a broken statue of Anubis. You tiptoe past. He snores. Inside, the air smells like dust, oil, and a heavy sweetness of ancient resin. The walls glow with faded paint, scenes of harvest, offering, and boats sailing across the sky. It's strangely peaceful. You edge closer to the sarcophagus, half-lidded, already disturbed by earlier visitors. You lift the cover just enough to peer inside. And there he is, the mummy, wrapped in linen that's browned with centuries, skin like dried dates, and a face frozen in a grimace that could be pain, wisdom, or just the natural result of a few thousand years of dehydration. But your eyes go straight to the mouth. His teeth, still there. Well, some are. A few incisors are missing, but several molars remain, slightly crooked, worn nearly flat, and strangely, still white. It's hard not to feel impressed. You flash your own reflection in a shard of polished bronze, then back to the mummy. He's winning. But here's the kicker. Just because his teeth look decent doesn't mean they were healthy. Historians point out that many Egyptian mummies, especially those from higher status tombs, show serious dental issues once you get past the surface. Abscesses, exposed pulp, heavy wear. Beneath those regal smiles were nerves screaming in agony. Modern CT scans of elite mummies have revealed jaw infections that probably caused headaches, fevers, even death in some cases. Toothaches weren't just annoyances. They could be fatal. there's one mummy, often cited in scholarly debates, whose facial bones show signs of infection spreading from an upper molar. Historians still argue whether this particular decay was caused by diet, overzealous cleaning, or sheer bad luck. You look back at the nobleman before you, regal even in decay, dressed in linen finer than anything you'll ever wear. You notice something nestled in the folds of his burial wrap, a small vial. You lean in. It's sealed with wax and labeled in faded ink. You can't read it completely, but one symbol is clear, the hieroglyph for mouth. Could it be a toothpaste jar? You have to fight the urge to pry it open, but you've seen enough tomb curses etched into walls to know when to back off. Still, the message is clear. Even in death, oral hygiene came along for the ride. It wasn't vanity, it was preparation. If you're going to meet the gods, you had better not do it with breadcrumbs in your bicuspids. You quietly back out of the tomb, heart racing. You've seen more than you bargained for. The image of that mummy's mouth will haunt and inspire you for days. Back in the village, dawn is still an hour away, but your brain won't sleep now. You pass a few night owls tending oil lamps or praying at home altars. One priest offers a sleepy nod. You nod back, teeth pressed together as if hiding your own dental sins. You stop by the apothecary stall again, long since closed. But there's a small basket outside. Chewing sticks, neatly arranged with a note scrawled in black ink, for the morning mouths. You take one, smile, and whisper thanks to whoever left it. Later, on your mat, your thoughts drift back to the mummy. Was he proud of his teeth? Did he believe that brushing with powdered emeralds or spitting into temple fountains gave him favor in the afterlife? Did he suffer in silence through abscesses and decay because the gods demanded a clean smile? Or maybe he just did what you're doing. Got up, chewed a twig, rubbed in the powder, and hoped it made a difference. One quirky bit from an old scribe's journal. You heard it sung once during a festival. Tells of a man who brushed his teeth so often that his wife claimed he loved his molars more than her. He replied, "At least my molars don't interrupt me." You think of that as you drift off, chewing stick tucked under your blanket, the scent of mint and myrrh still lingering in your nostrils. Tomorrow, you'll scrub again. Not because it's perfect, not because it doesn't hurt, but because it's what people do. People who want to smile, to speak, to kiss their children goodnight without them fainting. The mummy, tucked in his tomb, probably thought the same. By now, your teeth have been through the ringer, scraped, rubbed, chewed, chanted over, and possibly cursed. You're still alive, somehow, and even beginning to appreciate the daily rhythm of it all. But today, everything changes. Today, you're summoned to the big house. You've been hired, temporarily, to help in the home of a minor noble family. And let's just say, things are a little different here. For one, their floors aren't dirt. Their walls are painted with scenes of lotus blossoms and blue water. And their bathroom has an actual stone basin with imported scented oils. You hesitate before stepping in, half expecting to be chased off with a broom for tracking in peasant grit. Instead, a house servant waves you over and, without ceremony, hand you something smooth and shiny, a small dental tool. Not a twig, not a rock, a pick made of bronze, with a grip wrapped in dyed linen. You blink at it like it's a foreign animal. Use it for the gaps, the servant says. The lady insists. Right? The gaps. Turns out, rich people have dental needs too, just fancier ones. The family here doesn't use burned breadcrumbs or donkey hoof powder. No, they use a paste. Yes, an actual paste, made from ground sea salt, natron, mint, and crushed lapis lazuli. You stare at the jar in awe. That stuff is basically powdered heaven. You apply a dab to your frayed brush twig. Yes, they still chew. Some things never change and begin cleaning. It smells divine, like summer rain over warm stone, and tastes faintly of salt and fresh herbs. You feel your teeth tightening as if out of respect. This isn't dental care, it's spa treatment. Later, during your cleaning duties, you pass by the head of the household, lounging on a cushioned bench. She smiles at you, no beams. And her teeth, they shimmer slightly. Not because they're healthy. No, you can tell from the slight sag of her cheeks that several are missing. But the ones that remain, they're wired. Yes, wired. Gold wire runs along her gum line, binding a loose molar to its neighbor like a splint. Historians have debated for decades whether this counts as the first braces or an early form of tooth stabilization. Either way, it's impressive and mildly terrifying. You ask a kitchen boy about it later. He shrugs. The lady has a mouth healer, he says. Comes every season. Uses gold wire. Ties the teeth back together like papyrus bundles. Of course, because if you're rich enough, even your falling apart teeth get couture treatment. Some fringe tales claim that high-status Egyptians had access to dental implants. Missing teeth replaced with carved ivory or foreign stones. There's very little hard evidence for that, but you have heard rumors of mummies buried with replacement teeth jammed into their jaws. Whether those were functional or funerary decoration is still up for debate. One scribe you overheard in the temple said that royals didn't even feel pain the same way. Their mouths are bathed in lotus and guarded by the gods. You doubt that. Pain is pain, whether you live in a mud hut or a gold-leafed estate. Still, there is something to be said for the advantages of wealth. Their food is softer, their drinks are filtered, and most importantly, their dental tools don't double as farming equipment. You pass by a table where a young, noble boy is having his mouth examined by a visiting physician. The man holds a metal scraper, applies a thick paste to the boy's molars, and mutters a protective spell. The boy looks unimpressed. You would have cried. Later, as you're scrubbing the family's offering dishes, you find a tiny pot tucked among the others. You peek inside, yet another paste. This one smells of cloves and lotus. There's a glimmer of gold dust in it, too. Probably not for cleaning. Probably just to impress whoever had to smell your breath after death. It's a curious thing, how dental care in this world mirrors the social hierarchy so perfectly. For the poor, it's powdered rocks and prayer. For the rich, it's perfumed pastes and artisan wiring. One scholar said Egyptian dental care was like everything else in their culture, a reflection of the gods above, the dirt below, and the tiny rituals in between. Even in your short time here, you've seen the full spectrum, from fig tree twigs to bronze probes, from burnt barley to lapis lazuli, from bleeding gums to gold-stabilized grins. But none of it changes the one constant truth. Everyone's teeth hurt eventually. And yet, you can't help but admire their resilience. These people, rich or poor, priest or goat herder, put enormous effort into mouths that will never know the comfort of modern floss or Novocaine. And they do it daily, repeatedly, with precision, ritual, and an impressive ability to tolerate discomfort. You finish your work at the noble house, leaving behind their fragrant basins and silver-rimmed powder jars. Your own mouth feels cleaner today, maybe even regal. You didn't get gold wire, but you did score a leftover mint paste smuggled into your bag by a kind servant. Back home, you apply it again in the moonlight, brushing gently with your old twig. The taste lingers. Your smile aches. but you think just maybe you're starting to understand why they went through all this trouble. Because whether you're royalty or just someone trying not to taste your own breakfast by dinner time, we all want to feel clean, presentable, slightly less cursed in the gums, even if that means wiring your molars together with gold. You wake up with the taste of mint still faint on your tongue and a faint soreness in your jaw, half from last night's brushing, half from clenching through dreams of gold-wired molars snapping like bridge ropes. The sun peaks in over the palm rooftops, the Nile gleams in the distance, and you're hit with one clear realization. You've become that person, the one who reaches for a twig before even stretching. And just like that, it's routine. You sit by the low fire, watching others emerge from their homes. Some stretching, some coughing, one immediately belching into the morning air and causing a nearby goat to reconsider its proximity. But there's also a comforting familiarity in what follows. People reaching for bundles of herbs, unwrapping cloth pouches, rinsing with warm beer or herbal tea, chewing thoughtfully like a bunch of cows at a dental spa. You're part of it now. And so, this morning, as you brush and rinse and pretend your gums aren't still a war zone, you decide it's time to go deeper. Not just into teeth, but into the why behind all of it. You've seen the sticks, the rocks, the potions and pastes. You've been poked with copper tools and handed a dead noble's breath mint. But something still nags you. Why do they care so much? Because, let's be real, this wasn't just hygiene. It wasn't vanity either, though plenty of that existed. No, this obsession with oral rituals, with clean mouths and fragrant breath, was about something bigger, something cosmic. You walk to the temple district as the streets begin to fill. Priests chant, scribes wipe down statues, and children race each other between columns. You pass a mural, an ancient one, sun-faded but still visible. It shows a man standing before the gods in the hall of two truths. In his hands, an offering. In his mouth, words of purity. Because in ancient Egypt, words mattered more than almost anything else. To speak falsely was to disrupt the order of the world. To speak clearly, reverently, beautifully, that was to align yourself with Ma'at, the eternal balance of the universe. And you can't do that with bad breath. Seriously, it's even written in the Book of the Dead. The deceased must be able to recite spells, prayers, declarations of innocence. Clean words, clean soul. A foul-smelling mouth might not just be impolite, it might condemn you. One fringe priest even claimed that judgment in the afterlife involved smelling your breath. If it stank, the gods turned away. You'd be eaten by the devourer beast, part lion, part hippo, all nightmare. Maybe that's not canon, but it makes a great story, and probably helps sell a lot of toothpaste jars. You keep walking past the priestess who once rubbed mint oil on your jaw, past a market stall where you bought that terrible donkey hoof blend, never again, and past a wall carving of Thoth, god of wisdom and scribes, holding a reed pen in one hand and what looks suspiciously like a toothbrush in the other. Scholars still argue whether it's a stylus or a hygiene tool. You prefer the fun version. Eventually, you find yourself sitting by the riverbank, chewing on a licorice root, watching ducks glide lazily across the water. The air is warm. The wind smells of earth and sugarcane. And for the first time in weeks, your teeth don't hurt. Not much, anyway. You think about all the people you've met in this strange oral odyssey. The old woman with the gravel paste, and only 3 teeth, but a grin wide enough to frighten crocodiles. The temple boy brushing his teeth with such care, as if scrubbing each molar summoned the gods directly. The noblewoman with her gold wire, and perfumed paste and a mouth that still hurt no matter how shiny it looked. And the mummy, silent, grinning, perfectly still, his enamel whispering through time, "We tried too." This has never really been about perfect teeth. It's about survival, about dignity, about doing what you can with twigs, rocks, honey, and prayers. About starting every day saying, "I care. I'm trying, even if it hurts." Because pain or no pain, breath like lilies or a dung cart, everyone still smiled, still kissed their children goodnight, still sang temple songs, whispered secrets, told jokes, even when their gums bled, even when their molars cracked. They carried on, and so do you. You rinse your mouth one last time, spit into the reeds, and get ready for whatever today throws at your face. Grit bread, maybe even another copper probe if the temple calls. But you're not afraid anymore. You've got your twig. You've got your mint. You've got thousands of years of ancient, awkward smiles behind you. And maybe, just maybe, you've got the cleanest mouth on this side of the Nile. So now, as the Nile glimmers under starlight and the fires burn low in the village hearths, you lie back against your woven mat, your teeth gently tingling from the final scrub of the day. The air is soft, warm, carrying the scent of lotus and distant cooking fires, and the wind brushes past like a whisper through linen curtains. You close your eyes and picture that ancient toothbrush made of twigs, that little bowl of powder by the doorway, the copper tool gleaming in temple light. The past, once so strange and distant, feels close now, like the weight of a warm blanket pulled over your shoulders. The aches of the day begin to melt away. Your jaw, sore from chewing roots and smiling too much, finally relaxes. Your breathing slows. The hum of crickets blends with the rustle of reeds at the riverbank. The world grows quieter. You think again of the mummy, the old woman, the temple boy, all brushing, scraping, chewing, hoping. You're connected to them now, not just by history, but by ritual, and by the simple, enduring desire to start each day fresh, clean, ready. So let that tired body sink into the softness beneath you. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift with the breeze that carries time itself. There's nothing more to do tonight. Nothing to scrub, rinse, or chew. You've done enough. Your mouth is clean. Your spirit is calm. And sleep, gentle, ancient, and sweet, is waiting.